The sept of rewatching. The sept of binging.
Of rewatch it lore. The sept of the binge. West.
The rewatch
We can't even
maesters.
do anything with at Westeros because then we... Wait, what was that?
The rewatch maesters.
I don't hate that.
But is that to... Would it... Yeah, everyone would get that.
I think most would, but
If you've seen the pilot, you should know what a maester is.
I don't know if it would catch your eye as much.
Yeah.
Like scrolling through stuff.
Because there's one called The Rewatchables.
We probably have to put Thrones in it somewhere.
Yeah,
like,
I think so.
What if you did Got Thrones? Because it's like GOT.
There is one called that already.
Whoa.
Yeah, don't
But
scroll
you're just
through...
as clever as those people, so
Yeah.
feel good about
I
yourself.
scrolled through
You
the...
still hadn't heard of that podcast, so we got a ways to go.
I actually didn't go through iTunes. I only went through Stitcher and Google to see what Game of Thrones podcast names are. And there's a lot. But I didn't feel like many were that great. That's why I'm like, there's a good one out there.
Yeah.
We need another word for like Cliff Notes or binge.
Musical
That
Thrones.
just really that goes really well with it. Oh yeah.
Okay.
Rewatch. The Rewatchers on the wall.
Yeah, the rewatchers on the wall.
That's not bad.
That's not
I
bad.
kinda like that.
Yeah.
We'll see if it's taken.
Winter is coming.
Where are my dragons?
In the Game of Thrones, you either win or you die.
The things I do for love.
A Lannister always pays his debts.
Chaos is a ladder.
Hodor.
You know nothing, Jon Snow.
We
We
Are the Rewatchers on the wall.
Valamagules. Yes, all men must die, but we are not men. Dun, 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 dun. Oh, Khaleesi killing it. Hey,
so
welcome
good.
to this podcast. We're going to talk about Game of Thrones Season 3, episodes 1 through 4.
Yeah, we are.
You guys love my intros. My name is Mitchell Marshall. I'm here with Tyler Harris, and back with us after vomiting again, it's Tyler McKinley. And welcome to the watch. Her watch begins now. That's a better way to say it.
Yeah.
Riley Harris, also a first-time watcher, right?
Yes.
Joining us midstream. She's caught up. She's taken notes. We're ready to go. All right, Tyler. Give us the summary
Hit
of
us with the
episodes 1 through
moneymaker.
4.
On the first 4 episodes of Season 3 of Game of Thrones, this stuff happens.
Lucky.
Sam is saved by a ghost. The Night's Watch is headed back to the Wall. Jon sees a giant and meets Mance Rayder. Tyrion has daddy issues flare up because Tywin still hasn't visited him. Davos reenacts Castaway, then is saved by his pirate friends. Robin and the North arrive at Harrenhal. Roose Bolton has sent men to hunt down Jaime. Tywin gets off on being withholding. Tyrion asks for a Casterly Rock. Tywin metaphorically laughs in his face because he really, really, really hates Tyrion. Sansa and Shae stare at ships. Littlefinger tells Sansa he might be able to get her out of King's Landing. Dany's on a boat. Jorah explains the Unsullied to Dany. Davos confronts Stannis. He tries to attack Melisandre, gets thrown into dungeons. Marjorie mingles with the plebes. The Tyrells and Lannisters have an awkward dinner. Dany checks out the robot army. She's almost killed by a child with a murder ball and a blue-stained mouth, but Barristan suddenly saves her. Bran dreams of a stranger. Asha is Bran and Rickon's new dad, basically. Catelyn's father dies. Catelyn's father dies. Damn it! Theon is being tortured. Brienne and Jaime don't kill a farmer that recognizes Jaime. Shae warns Sansa about Littlefinger. Sansa attends Olenna Tyrell's garden party. Olenna wants Sansa to spill the tea on Joffrey, and Sansa opens up. Catelyn makes Bran a huge dream catcher and tells Talisa everything bad that is happening because she couldn't love Jon. Wargs aren't just wolves in Lord of the Rings. Sam mopes. The Reeds meet up with Bran and friends. Arya and Gendry and Hot Pie meet Thoros, Amir, Angie, and the Brotherhood of Banners. Shae wants to protect Sansa. Joff shows Marjorie how his Red Rider BB gun works. One of Theon's captors tells him he will help him escape. Jojen Reed tells Bran he is a warg. Again, not a wolf from Lord of the Rings. The Brotherhood has captured the Hound. Brienne and Jaime fight, and the farmer has sold them out to Roose Bolton's men. Hoster Tully's funeral gets off to a rough start. Robb chastises Edmure Tully for sacrificing 200 men for 2 Lannister teenagers. The small council plays musical chairs. Tywin tells Littlefinger to marry Lysa Arryn and names Tyrion Master of Coin. Jaime gives Brienne advice about being a prisoner. Hot Pie gets a job in a bakery. Brynden Blackfish Tully gives Catelyn a pep talk. Talisa tends to the Lannister teens. Mance sends Jon with Tormund to attack the Wall. The Watch arrives at crashes again. Theon's friend sets him free. Melisandre goes on a fetch quest. Jorah and Barristan disagree. Dany purchases all 8,000 Unsullied and Missandei, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, with a dragon and possibly makes another Lord of the Rings reference. Girl power. Tyrion gets the kingdom's Excel spreadsheets and buys Pod a bunch of whores. King's Landing's in extravagant debt, and apparently Pod rocks at sex. The Boltons almost rape Brienne, but Jaime convinces them she is worth more with their honor attack, and they cut off Jaime's hand. The hold steady, sings a song. Jaime is sad about his hand. Tyrion asks Varys for proof of Cersei's plot. Varys waxes sentimental, then shows Tyrion the sorcerer he ordered. The watch be shoveling. Gilly still wants Sam to save her baby. Bran just can't catch that raven. Podrick is the talk of the town. Roz meets with Varys and tells him some of Littlefinger's plans. Joff and Marjorie plan their wedding. Olenna has some crazy ideas. Theon's savior takes him back to the torture chamber. Brienne gives Jaime a pep talk. Tywin tells Cersei she is dumb and that he will stop Joffrey if need be. Varys wants to help Sansa. Marjorie tells Sansa she should marry Loras. The Watch is dying of hunger. Carl kills Craster. Rast stabs Mormont, then kills him, and Gilly and Sam escape into the woods. Arya and friends meet Beric Dondarrion, who is going to fight the Hound in a trial of combat, and Dany gives Nicholas the dragon, then immediately destroys the city with her army and frees every slave.
Hell yeah.
That's all that happens.
That's it. Well done. We should have done Unique New York before that started.
Yeah, I was not warmed up.
And you were bleeding profusely rather recently.
Yeah, and I had 2 tacos.
And those will really jam up
I feel like
throat.
I'm breaking out into sweat because of all those things combined at this moment, but
A song of grease
that's the
and
way
blood.
it goes. That's the way it is.
Well, season 3 starts off with a bang. There's really not a lull. I mean, there's some slower moments, but they're good. We have some new pairings. Let's talk about people.
Because when you really boil the fat away from Game of Thrones,
Well, you
it's
always want to
about
talk
the
about
people.
swords and dragons.
Yeah.
And
I'm like
slaves,
constantly
and
like,
let's talk about
yeah,
people.
but let's talk about the love making that happens.
Okay, no, I didn't say. Oh my! It's always intercourse with you.
We talking about practice.
Talking about
I will remark I don't think there's any incest in these episodes. So.
Well, damn it.
I mean,
Jaime and
no
Cersei are
physical
together, so-
incest, but there's
Okay.
plenty of.
Through
Yeah.
episodes 1 through 4,
Emotional.
let's go. What is your favorite storyline? What combination of people? What is keeping you on the edge of your seat? Just what's the most intriguing thing going on right now? T Mac, we'll start with you.
I'm gonna have to go with Marjorie Tyrell, because she's been in the show for about a season to this point, and you don't really know much about her.
Yeah.
She's very much on the back burner. She was engaged to Renly, and then he got murdered. They never did it, so she's still available for royal marriage. But from the get-go in this season, it's shown that it's almost like she's been preparing for this her whole life. I feel like she's ready to play the game, and she comes in and she's scoring points really quickly.
We saw hints of it last season, and this one she comes out and is clearly like, "I'm here in King's Landing, and I'm here to play the mother effing game of Thrones."
And does it in a different way than everyone else.
Yeah, I mean, to me, she feels a lot like Cersei in her prime. Because, like, Cersei, I think when Cersei's playing the game the best, she is very charming, or at least, icy enough that she's so in control that no one's going to question her.
Yeah.
Marjorie's definitely more charming, but they feel very similar to me as far as, the way that they play, the way they get what they want, at least. So.
No, but from the game, she meets with those orphans, and that's something that Cersei would never do. I'm pretty sure there's a conversation where she's like, I don't care what the common people want.
Yep.
They can all die for all I care, essentially. Whereas Marjorie's like, I don't think she really necessarily cares about them, but she knows she needs their support.
She's creating a facade, or just, I mean, it's what all politicians repeat. She's creating a brand for herself, essentially, in Westeros, and putting herself in a positive light, because she knows that makes the deviousness of the Lannisters a little bit more offset.
Yeah.
Yeah, she does. She makes a lot of big moves. She's super charming, and at first, the way she approaches Joffrey, he doesn't know how to handle it.
Yeah.
Because she kind of almost knows how to sugar it, or to, put sugar on whatever she's given him so that he doesn't understand. At least at first, he kind of starts to rebel against and call her woman again and stuff. But at first, he's really caught off guard because she's older, she's super hot, and that's Joffrey's opinion, not mine.
All right.
Good, yeah. I don't want that hot take on this podcast.
But no, from the moment, and she's kind of in with it with her grandmother, Olenna. And
her grandmother.
I'm sure someone will go into
That's
her
hot.
a little more, but they get it. I really like it because the first time I watched it, I was like, oh, she really cares about the common people. Oh, she really cares about Sansa Stark.
Yeah.
And this time watching it, especially with her scenes with Sansa, I'm like, she is playing her. Like, she is like I think later on she does kind of like show a little bit more affection to her in a real way. But in those first few conversations, it's what can I get out of this girl? How can I use this girl to my means?
She wants power, but I think she is a better person than the Lannisters. She probably does want to rule a lot better than they do. She definitely, but she's thirsty for power for sure. And Sansa's a pawn in that, but at the same time, I think she genuinely doesn't want Sansa to get raped.
Yeah, no, I
Which
agree.
you can't say for a lot of people in this freaking show.
It's true.
I mean, you can't say that for George R.R. Martin. So that's all he wants.
Don't speak of the Allfather in that way.
You know what? We don't actually have to be nice to George until he releases Winds of Winter. Okay?
We don't. We're not
So
obligated.
never again. It's open season on
I hope
George
he's taking care
R.R.
of
Martin.
his health so he can. Riley, did you have any thoughts on the big moves that Marjorie makes early in this season, or what's appealing about her? As I think this show does a great job of having strong female characters, but she comes in and she plays it in a new way.
Mm-hmm. I think that it's nice to see Joffrey get kind of manipulated because he's just been this, like, whatever I say goes and no one's going to question him because he's a terrible person. But she kind of manipulates him in a really nice way and just kind of gets him to, like, makes him think that he's coming up with her ideas, which I think is really nice.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah.
Well, and we've seen Joffrey finally kind of bite back at his mom. I mean, the first thing, of course, being getting Ned Stark killed was the first time he was like, I'm king and I don't have to listen to you. But she has this little hold over him, and she even tells Tywin, like, you try and tell this kid something he doesn't want to hear. And Marjorie's the first one who knows how to manipulate him, which now gives her a hand up on Cersei, which is pretty dope.
Yeah, it's something that we see her succeeding at that Cersei has not. And I felt like season 3 has been my favorite for a while, and I kind of realized maybe I'm just biased because I hate Cersei so much, and this is really the first time you get to see her, like, get bested significantly, and she's completely...
In almost every scene she's in.
Yeah.
And she's going in... You hate her and Jaime at the beginning, and Jaime is going in a completely different direction than she is throughout the season. And it's because he's been put in a different position, but you can tell those things are changing. Like, she is in this... She's still in her element, having to play the game in this way, and their divergence is super interesting. I'd say briefly, I don't know if I have any specific thoughts, but the Brienne-Jaime thing, which some people ship and some people super love, I'm not even into it that way, but the first time I was pretty bored during a lot of their interactions, and this time it is so much more telling, and it is so much more fun to just be walking along the road with them.
Yeah, I agree.
I definitely don't ship that, but I do think, like, they are one of the most interesting pairs this season, easily. Like, I love all their stuff, so I don't, like, want them to, bang or anything, but I just want them to be friends and be cool. Like, fist bump at some point, probably.
Well, you can see the grow, like, they are growing to understand, because he's such just a troll at the beginning, and she just sees him as this one-dimensional king-slaying asshole, and you slowly start to see that to change as they encounter new things together.
Yeah.
But they are a fun pairing that is not really critical to the big picture super right now, but is super fun to spend time with.
Yeah, they're like a nice break from all the other drama and wars going on.
Yeah.
I think.
And, like, I don't know, it's one of the moments that sticks with me most in the show for some reason. When I think of Game of Thrones, I think of this episode. And it's the episode where they are captured and Jaime tries to stick up for her as she's about to be raped and starts telling this lie that, that's in the first 4. And, right? Am I right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
Okay,
right.
We can cut that out.
It's right. It's on the 4th
Your notes are
episode.
beautiful,
good.
by the way.
Thank you.
I
Like-
can never remember what's
There are
in
a
it.
lot.
Look at my notes and look at your notes. Like,
Mine are like...
but anyway, there's that scene.
He does the lie of the sapphires.
Yeah, and he's trying to help her, and he kind of sticks his neck out for her. I put sticks his neck out ... or wrist. And then it's a wonderful fake out because you think it's going one way, and then he's like, "Oh, bring me the carving knife." You're like, "Oh, I know where this is going." And then he like gets all up in his grill with the knife, and then he turns to go away, and then he just swings back down, cuts off his hand, and then we cut to credits with this wonderful cover of
By the Hold Steady.
Oh, I was
freaking
gonna ask,
amazing.
what in the heck is this music after Game of Thrones right now?
and
Yeah,
it was
it's bizarre.
I feel like it's a weird, perfect moment where it's like, I don't know. It almost feels.
It's like a moment brought to you by Quentin Tarantino.
I was exactly what I was going to say. It feels almost Tarantino-ish. Like
It reminds me of the pencil scene in The Dark Knight, actually, because of the slight fake out and then the suddenness of it.
Yeah.
And again, this is not as big a deal as killing Ned, who is you thought to be your protagonist, but it is a big deal because Jaime is known as this great fighter, and we see him and Brienne square off, which is so much fun. And you slowly see the tide change. And I know he's been apparently been a prisoner for a year. Let's talk about how time does not make sense in the show, but he's been a prisoner. I know he's weak and everything, but that back and forth is very fun to watch. And now he has lost that element, and that is, of course, going to be another character change he has to undergo.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Tyler, what was your favorite storyline we haven't mentioned in these first few?
Well, just because I'm a broken record, let's go to Tyler's Tyrion corner. Man, it's awesome.
He's so
all
good.
that
and
stuff
he gets
is so
to
good.
he gets to interact with new people a little bit here, and it's just so fun.
Well, and and it's also we talked a lot about last season how we kind of saw Tyrion in his element, and he seems unstoppable. Like he's so good at what he does, and now we're seeing him with his dad again, which
He's got daddy props.
Yeah, they've all got terrible daddy issues, but just all of that stuff. Again, his stuff with Shay, they continue to prove they're the best relationship in Game of Thrones. Fight me. And all of their scenes are so fascinating, and also I love the scenes where it's not just them, but they're in the same room, because there's so much where unspoken
she's with Sansa
tension and stuff in those scenes.
Well played.
It's so good. But yeah, also Tyrion is in one of my favorite scenes in these episodes, which is the small council meeting where everyone is present, and it's just a lot of silence and chairs scraping and being moved. It's such a bizarre scene that it doesn't need to be there, but it's just fun.
It's
fun because you see
volumes.
everyone's personality. Yeah, you see everyone's personality and how they sit down, essentially.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, so I really like all of Tyrion's stuff, because for sure, if we've learned anything about him over these episodes or since the beginning of the show, it's that he is a survivor. He is like a cockroach. He's gonna make his way out of situations. He's gonna work himself into survivable positions, and he makes smart decisions.
Yeah.
All the decisions he makes are very calculated and smart. And not only with the stuff in season 2, those decisions not only saved his life, but with Blackwater, everyone's life in a lot of ways. Everyone at King's Landing for sure. And so that stuff's just fascinating to me. I think all that stuff's really good. And him and Bronn's scenes, they're a little further between at this point, but they're always so good. And that relationship is really fun too, because it's on its face very straightforward, the sellsword and the rich lord, but their relationship is deeper and more tender than either of them would like to admit, I think. But,
oh yeah, and it's funny because they get a little bit self-referential with it.
Yeah.
Do we want to throw Pod at this conversation? Yeah.
I guess we should probably talk about
yes,
Pod.
Pod the Squire, who saved his life, gets his reward.
Who is another example of a character that has very little screen time, but they've done extremely well with as far as developing him as a person and what he means to other characters. It's funny because most of what we know about Pod is either spoken when he is off screen or communicated in glances between him and other characters, which is really cool. Good. It's really good.
He's subtle. I remember my first watch on this show, I actually got him confused with Gendry.
I could see that.
Oh yeah.
It just was this. There was just so many characters,
Yeah.
and I was watching in a less attentive way. And it is so much more fun to recognize the little things that happen with Pod, and that he continues to subtly work his way in. And we talk about the unspoken tension. Tyrion has unspoken chemistry with Bronn and Pod as well. I mean, that goes miles as to what Tyrion is doing as a character and what the actor's doing as an actor.
Yeah, for sure.
Peter Dinklage.
Um,
I forgot his name for a second. I feel terrible about it.
But yeah, for sure, let's talk about Pod. Basically,
Pod's got his biggest moment in the show.
after
This is like
he's got the biggest moment in the show, if I'm to believe what I've heard.
this is like you going somewhere and someone just saying, "No, it's free." You were that good.
Yeah. So basically, yeah, he gets that basically a reward for saving Tyrion's
Yeah.
life.
Quadage a trois.
Yeah,
Is that what you call a 4-person
Yeah,
menage
sure.
a trois?
That sounds
menage
great.
a quad.
Quatre-trois.
We'll call it an orgy.
Quattro sexo.
Yep, that's it.
That's what I call it.
An unholy union is what I call it. But anyways,
I call it a very holy union.
So many holes.
but yeah, that I didn't think the show was going to, like, when he shows up again and has the money, I was like, oh, this is going to be a hilarious misunderstanding because he just took all this money.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
no, they made
No.
me take this money with me. And, like, I didn't think the show was going to go there of, like, he's got to be one of the only people in recorded history that a whore denied money for, right?
Yeah, because that's
Yeah.
all that matters. And there's such a sitcom moment after that when Bronn and Tyrion are like, they pull up chairs and they're like, "Tell us everything."
Yeah.
And then we don't hear is the best part.
Yeah.
Like, my favorite is, I saw a meme the other day that was like, I'm pretty sure it's used for other things, they just changed the format. It's 2 lemonade stands, and one has a huge line and one doesn't. And then one said, someone who knows the end of Game of Thrones that didn't have anyone in front of it. The other one just said, people who know what Pod did to those whores. All line in front of it. And yeah, it just is like, and it's like referenced later on in another episode, I believe, where Roz is talking to Varys, and he's like trying to get the deets, and she's like, I don't even have them. Like, they just like can't explain it. He was unexplainably good in bed.
Yeah, so that's another. There are some really like good like humorous moments, I feel like, in these episodes that maybe we haven't seen in previous seasons. Anything is like overtly jokey is stuff that's happening here for sure.
Well,
I mean, there's a lot of stories still to go. I mean, let's hit on Theon because he doesn't get a whole lot of screen time. But he gets a whole lot of
scream time.
Boom!
This is just the Zingers episode of our podcast, apparently.
So Theon is he wakes up with a sack on his head and he is tied up to crossbeams pretty much, but they're like in an axe and he's hanging there, and he proceeds to be tortured in various ways by a handful of people.
The X-Men.
Then he finds a friend.
Yeah. Little Weasley guy, after everyone leaves, comes and unmasks him and said, tells him his sister Yara sent him. Right, Yara?
Yes.
I keep forgetting that one because of Osha.
Yeah. It's
how it is in the books.
Osha in the books.
Yeah. Yeah, and he's like, but I'll come for you tonight and we'll escape. And then...
And so at this point, I just gotta know, are you rooting for Theon? Are you like, okay, he's in maybe the worst possible position ever. I want him to escape. I want this guy to help him because otherwise he's literally just getting tortured. Or do you still feel like there's some vengeance needed for the way he betrayed the Starks, who are the family that we are behind right now? Riley?
I do not feel bad for Theon. I'm over him. I'm glad he's getting tortured. He deserves
Were you into
it.
him at first?
No.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I thought he was like fine, but then he turned on the Starks so quickly after they had really... I mean, I know that it wasn't like, oh, he had a really perfect life, but like they gave him a good life. They didn't like treat him poorly, really. And then he just went and like messed up all their stuff, and I don't feel bad for him because I love the Starks.
Like, down for whatever torture was going to come his way.
Mm-hmm.
See, I would be cool with him dying. That's what I'm like. Yeah. I'm like, I mean, I don't want him to be tortured, but also just
I remember wanting him to escape, and now I'm like, why? But also, maybe it's just because I didn't want to see the torture. Oh, wow. I mean...
Yeah, it's not fun to watch torture.
Yeah, I remember, I can answer, the first time I watched it, I was like, good. He's getting what he deserves.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, it's hard to watch something like that and not, like, put yourself in the person's shoes who's being tortured and be like, wow, fingernails are fragile, that hurts.
Oh.
Like, but at the time, I'm like, man, you deserve all of this. And then... I'll just say this time it's a weird mix, and that's all I'm gonna say because I don't want to spoil anything in the future. But like this time, it is different. It's kind of yes, he deserves, but no, I don't know.
But does anyone deserve that? It's like getting kissed by a Dementor. Riley, do you have any idea, as someone who's watching for the first time, do you think you know who has him?
I could not say.
Okay.
I thought I knew at one point. I thought it was like someone maybe affiliated with the Starks, because I mean, word has gotten back to them about everything he did.
Right.
But I genuinely don't have any idea. I can't figure out, like, because they really don't even speak of like a motive at all. Like, there's no like monologuing with this guy, so it's hard to figure out why and where he is and everything.
I remember specifically feeling like this was actually a little bit of bad storytelling because it was so random. I was like, hey, we're going back to this character we knew, but where is he? Why is he here? But it does become more interesting the longer he's in that room, but I kind of do feel bad for him. Team Theon, not really.
I'm not on that team.
No.
I can't believe down that path.
Any other thoughts on Theon? Am I missing anything that happens in besides a little bit of torture?
Feel free to cut this out. I'm pretty sure we talked about it in your your rundown. He gets brought back, right?
Yeah,
we've got to
that's
that
the
point.
last thing we've seen.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that's a big important moment
In
that we
episode
skipped
4?
over.
Yeah.
Where
Okay, I thought that had not happened yet.
where this guy who rescues him ends up killing his pursuers, and then he brings him back. Oh, well, he's bringing him to a town. He thinks he's somewhere new, somewhere safe. Turns out just to be the same place. But as they're coming back in, sneaking back in, there's an important conversation between the two of them, where Theon kind of breaks down and realizes I've messed up, and almost like, I mean, yeah, it took the torture and everything to help him realize it. But I think it's more than just, I hate being tortured, and that's why I'm feeling this way. He's confessing this guy who has no idea who he is, and he's just like...
And he spews a lot of stuff.
My real father lost his head at King's Landing, and he feels awful.
Well, and he also, and this is the first time that we hear, like, him explicitly say that Bran and Rickon are still alive. Because, like, we obviously know that, but not everyone in the world knows that. It's a little cloudy to me on who thinks what about those two. It's kind of like, I think that some people just think they're missing. At least I hope that's what they think, because if they think they're dead and this is the way they're reacting, that would be dumb. But yeah, it's so that's another, I think, like key detail that he lets slip that I think will come back. I don't know. I don't really know.
Let's talk about Bran and Rickon and our homie Osha.
She's great.
She is so fun, and there are some moments and dynamics that are super interesting. Mostly, honestly, I'm bored with that storyline, even as they get introduced to some new characters.
Yeah,
I feel that.
It feels like an in between. They're en route to something interesting, but it's not super enthralling where they're at right now.
Well, I don't think this is a spoiler, but there's a whole season that he's not even in.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Like, they don't touch Bran at all for an entire season.
Wow.
Yes, and frankly, the actor comes back a foot and a half taller.
Yeah, and his nose is
As
about
he-
3 pounds
he-
bigger.
I mean, even the change between last season and this season is pretty notable.
You're like, looks like Catelyn might have gotten around too. Like,
Looks like that boy just needed some bed rest.
Oh, yeah, but
you look like you fell out of a tree. Oh,
we meet the Reed children here, and we don't know a lot.
Yeah.
And it's slowly starting to like try and hint and develop and create this emotional struggle of what he might be going through, or that there's this darker, mysterious, supernatural thing going on. And honestly, I think it's poorly done. I think it's one of the very few things where I've not been intrigued. I mean, I want to know the answer, but their interactions, I am not invested in the things that they are trying to figure out with him.
To be fair, if this stuff had happened in season 1 or even season 2, I might be more on board with it. But honestly, I honestly think the reveal of like what Bran is actually probably doing also is not really given the attention it deserves or the weight it deserves.
I agree. If
Because
you've
we
read the
kind
books,
of
he's
learn of it
much more,
through the wildlings. Like they're the ones that kind of describe it more, and then Jojen Reed just kind of like throws the word that we've heard before into that conversation, and it's like, oh yeah, I mean, I get it.
they don't
Kind of a
really
bummer.
like. We don't hear a lot of their conversations.
Right.
It's usually we can hear just noise in the background of them talking, and Osha just be like, "Oh, I hate that they're talking."
Yeah.
Like that's so. there's not really a whole lot to those conversations, and part of me is like, maybe because if we did, it would be revealed too much, and we would like figure it out beforehand or whatever. But I don't know. It's weird. I don't think I hate it as much as you did, Mitchell. But it did.
I hate it, but yeah,
it didn't do
clumsier.
Yeah, it didn't do anything to like wow me, you know.
Right.
And like, and I think it is telling that they did have to skip him for a season. That it wasn't as well structured as the book is with him.
His book stuff. It's not spoiler to say it's a lot of him just running around as a wolf in his dreams, and not a ton happens. It's just that he thinks and talks a lot. Like, but I totally see why his storyline was very hard to translate to screen. But then the way they try to do it, I guess maybe it's not their fault, but it's not as interesting as he is in the book. Also, the wolves, the dire wolves, play a bigger role in the books, not by a ton, actually, because my friends who are big fans love the dire wolves, and they made it seem like they were going to be a bigger deal. So when I read the books, I was kind of surprised that they weren't as in there. But you can kind of see Shaggy Dog, which is Rickon's dog, is very wild and out of control in a bad way, and it to some degree mirrors their personalities, each of them. Mm-hmm. Of course, we lost Lady very soon, very early on, and then Nymeria had to go, which everybody loves Arya and Nymeria, and I'm like, they're together for 3 episodes or 2 episodes, and in the books, it's not. It's very similar as well.
Yeah, but
I think we're missing 2 really important storylines. But honestly, it's very curious to me that none of us even mentioned them as our favorites, because I don't think they're in downswings at all. But for some reason, maybe it's the fact that one's above the wall and one's in Essos. They don't feel as pertinent. Is that what you're thinking?
I will say they're both. I'm more interested in the King's Landing stuff. I'm interested in House of Cards, Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
That's what I like. And so when those storylines start colliding with House of Cards, Game of Thrones, I will be more interested. And I feel like that's what I'm waiting for as I'm watching these. I will say, Jon Snow, good thing you have interesting people around you, because holy shit, is he a boring sack of shit. He is a boring human being.
Season 3, he is not.
Well, he does start to do something interesting, like the way he survives with Mance Rayder, and the way he's getting forced into playing the game just a little bit.
Sort of. Okay, so here's my thing. I think a lot of it's a performance thing for me. This, like, his journey is a flat line of just like, wow, man, I'm a bastard. I'm gonna go to the Night's Watch. It'll be great. And then he gets to the Night's Watch. He's like, man, I'm on the Night's Watch, but now I'm a steward. And then he's like, man, okay, great. I gotta go be a ranger. And then he can't do the one thing he's supposed to do as a ranger. And then he's like, I killed this guy, and now I'm a wildling. And like, luckily, Ygritte's there because she is like dynamic and interesting and cool.
Oh, yeah.
But man, Jon Snow is a stuffed shirt of a human being, I think. And I think a lot of that's the performance. I just don't know that character.
I used to be lower on this storyline my first watch, and it's improved every time for me. I don't think Kit Harington is good, but I don't think he's terrible.
Not.
And I don't know if he's given a lot to do. Like, that gruff stoicness, like, is that what they want of him? Is there more he could add depth-wise? You're right in that Ygritte is super interesting. But I think Jon finally shows a little bit more growth as this moves along. But I like seeing the world of the wildlings.
So do I.
Because it's such a great contrast.
Yeah.
And it has its own little political dynamic going, but it's also like, forget everything you knew about lords and ladies. And they're aggressively like, guess what? We're going to go kill your people. And that's kind of dope because... But I will say Jon doesn't hide it well. Like, he should be doing what Sansa's doing. She's like, I love Joffrey. He should be selling it. He's like, yeah, we're going to kill those crows.
Well, the other thing is, and this is the thing we talked about with Sansa in season 1, it is not clear what Jon wants. It is not clear entirely what Jon thinks. We don't know that. Like, we don't know if he has ulterior like, if he's thinking that he's gonna flip on the wildlings when he gets to the wall. We don't know if he is completely converted. We don't know if he's just gonna buy into Ygritte. You know what I mean? All of that stuff is unclear, and for the type of character that Jon Snow is, that doesn't work. It doesn't work to have to have those things ambivalent. If we need to believe in him as the hero, we need to know where he's going. You know?
I'm extremely curious to see what you think as he moves along, because I see a little bit differently, but as far as what he wants, I'm not sold on the fact that he's with. I think it's pretty clear that he he doesn't want, because he says I just think it's pretty clear that he does not want the Night's Watch to get overrun by these people. But I do think his eyes have been opened. I don't know how to counter your arguments, but
here's my thing: is the performance is flat. The writing is not great. To me, the purpose of Jon Snow at this point is to serve as a window to something more interesting.
Did you honestly, my first watch through, I thought differently. But this time watching it through, I've noticed more what you're talking about. And, I mean, in my opinion, the only interesting moment of Jon's character by himself as a character is the moment when he's in Mance Rayder's tent at the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
And then from there on, it's like, is what you're saying. Like, I don't buy for a second that there's any sort of pull between, like, I think he thinks, yeah, I get a better sense that these are people too, and maybe they deserve some, but there's no, like, I'm not, as a viewer, I'm not questioning which side is he gonna choose.
But are you supposed to be? Do you think the storyteller's
that's what I was gonna say.
I think he wants to go to King's Landing, or not, sorry, he wants to go to Castle Black, and he wants to be back where he's supposed to be because he has this draw to it, although you can start to see him falling for Ygritte and realizing the humanity of the people beyond the wall. I do think you can see those things in him, but I still think it's clear that what he ultimately wants, I don't know. But right now, he wants to be safe back at the wall.
I mean,
it's just not interesting. His journey, like, there's not enough dynamic there. You know what I mean? Like, even like the stuff we see with Tyrion, he's been at King's Landing for the last 2 seasons, but we have seen him on top and we've seen him at the very bottom. And like with Jon, I just haven't seen that. Like, I just don't feel like the time is given. Even when he has to kill Corin Halfhand, I don't feel it. Like, it doesn't resonate in a way that a lot of other stuff does. And so it's left me kind of down on that. I mean, I like him and Ygritte's dynamic. That's what I like about it.
Well, I mean,
right now. I like that British Dwight is in Game of Thrones.
Yes,
now.
who reminds me a lot of Micah in Red Dead Redemption 2.
Yeah, I could see that.
But no,
Red Dead Redemption 2 out now on PlayStation 4 and Xbox One.
I think what you said is true. There is a window to something that's more interesting. And I think his scenario is why I kind of like went along with it the first time watching it without really thinking about that, because the scenario is by itself builds tension of like, are they gonna like what is gonna happen between these characters? Who's going to break first, kind of, because there's just this constant tension between everyone with Jon's presence being there, and everyone around him is entertaining. Tormund, we don't get a ton of information on Tormund yet, but what the scenes he's in, he's very entertaining. He's simultaneously very imposing and very scary, and also very friendly and like the big lovable guy. Like,
he's a crazy person that's actually respected for once in this show. Like most other crazy people, it's like, yeah, it's because he had sex with his mom and all this stuff. And
I mean, in all fairness, he's respected because he had sex with a bear. But I think their dynamic at the beginning, when you kind of see the culture clash between Jon and Tyrion, and it happens with Ygritte a lot, but I think the way that Tormund throws it at him, I think that's a super fun conversation.
He gives some wonderful sex advice, I believe, about sliding in there like a baby seal, I believe is the term that's used. And I really appreciated that.
First.
I feel like that's some, full, just got a torpedo, like whole body. No, but that, he's great. Everyone around him great. Mance Rayder, very few scenes he's actually in, but he commands a presence. I put him kind of, not quite on the same level, but kind of that same idea as Stannis and Tywin Lannister.
His intros are really good subversion too, because he doesn't
he's just
look
in the
the way
back
that you think he is. You know,
Riley, do you care what's happening beyond the wall? Because I care.
Not really.
I'm in between you two.
I'm kind of, I mean, when I watch it, like, there are obviously storylines that I'm more excited to watch than some that I'm like, okay, here we go. How long is this, like, cutscene gonna be?
Oh.
But, and
Supposed to be
Jon
gameplay.
Snow's is one of them. Because I feel like I, like, expected more from him, because he was one of the characters, like, you hear about, even if you don't watch the show, like, you know about Jon Snow. So I was like, oh, he's gonna, like, do really cool things, and I haven't seen him do anything cool yet. So, I don't know about him.
Agreed. I think right now the wildlings are much more interesting than Jon, and he is almost just there to take us
If
there.
it's any consolation for you guys, I mean, I think his story goes somewhere very interesting in the future. and I think. Do you not think that?
No, of course I do.
Okay, but yeah, no, but so hopefully you feel the same way, and I'm excited to see what you guys think when we get there.
I do want to like put a caveat at the end of this. His stuff is fine, but it's nowhere near a lot of the other. There's so much other interesting stuff happening in this season that it's low on my list.
Tyrion,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Almost
I want to
anything
touch
King's Landing.
on King's Landing, a few interactions and characters before we go to Dany, because she is what ends these 4 episodes. She's probably has the most interesting stuff going on overall. So Cersei and Tyrion have a conversation where he says, "You're not as half as clever." She says, "You're not half as clever as you think you are. That still makes me more clever than you." And then Tyrion proceeds to get his heart broken by his dad as he's like, "You're not like you would never get oh my gosh, I can't talk.
Casterly Rock.
Thank you.
You're never gonna get Casterly Rock.
Yeah, you're not that important."
Yeah. No, I think that's an interesting scene because I have always wondered during that scene, like, what is Tywin's plan for Casterly Rock? Like, obviously he's got some hope for Jaime not to be celibate or to sleep with someone besides Cersei, and like, I don't know what he's thinking his plan's gonna be because Tyrion really is his only option. So I've always found it interesting that his pride just kind of overtakes that love of his legacy enough that he's willing to take that risk.
And then let's talk about Varys. He tells his story and in this beautiful monologue that is like, I'm entranced by it. And then he also has a great conversation with Mama Tyrell, as I call Olenna. By the way, I call that the impossible sex scene that we need.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, two of my favorite characters.
How did she word it? What happens when the non-existent bumps up against the decrepit?
Yeah.
Anyway, I am into both of them in that way, so whatever. Okay.
Best couple in the show.
Let's talk about Varys a little bit. He obviously doesn't want to sit on this throne, but he is so much fun to watch with all the people who do.
Freaking love him. Yeah, something I want to point out about that conversation where he talks about how he was kidnapped by one of the fire priests of, I believe in this season we see the name of the god R'hllor, or I don't know how to pronounce it. R'hllor.
Yeah.
And who Melisandre, who's with Stannis, that's the god she serves. Who Thoros of Myr, they're of the same religion.
Oh, the Brotherhood Without Banners. We should check in on them.
And and so he was kidnapped by one of these same fire priests, and he tells a story about how one kidnapped him, cut off his junk, said some crazy incantation, threw it in a fire, and he heard a voice. And so I think with that and just with everything else we've seen, this religion is the only evidence we have of any religion being real in any sense.
It works. We've seen it work.
And that's really interesting to me because he's like, I heard a voice come out of the flames. I don't know what it was, but my junk on fire summoned something.
Right.
Last quote from King's Landing. I don't distrust you because you're a woman. I distrust you because you're not as smart as you think you are. Man.
But
Papa
now the 2 or 3 witnesses. Cersei's dumb.
Yeah.
She's dumb.
Well, Cersei, because we know she's smart, she's good at playing the game. We talked about the similarities between her and the hot chick. But Marjorie. But sometimes these names, and I have seen the show several times, read the books, and I have a bad memory. But she gets put in her place.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fun to watch him just be savage. And then, you know who doesn't get a lot of play? Our girl Arya. She doesn't really have much to do with her.
Not a whole lot.
She's not even in the first episode, I don't think, at all.
Yeah, I think I noticed that there was like an episode that went by, and I was
like,
"Oh yeah."
In chunks, I forget that. Like Dany generally misses 1 to 2 a season, and you may not. You won't notice if you're binging, but Arya absent. Sad day.
I think it's interesting that we're going to talk about Daenerys here in a minute too, but it is interesting. I feel like when you do see her, it's like big chunks.
Yeah,
and I've been trying to figure out why exactly that is. I think it's just they're literally introducing like a whole separate world.
Yeah.
that like if
fit.
you were cutting away from that every 5 minutes, like this show would be even less comprehensible. Like it's pretty. I'm not saying it's incomprehensible, but
no,
it would become even more difficult to keep things straight. I feel like so. Yeah, it's interesting.
So let's head over to Essos and Dany. She is
Okay, hold on. Before
Go
we
ahead.
go into this,
Yes.
explain, because I'm not gonna look at a map. I probably won't. I'll forget. But since it's important to me now, Google doesn't have it. I looked.
What? Okay.
So Essos and Westeros, are those comparable? Like, are those of the same level as far
Honestly,
as like,
I
are those
don't know.
continents?
Mitchell keeps throwing Essos around, so I'm like, oh, that must be right.
Oh,
'Cause then
well,
there's-
yeah.
and
So there's
so
Westeros,
Essos-
West, Essos, East.
Okay,
And
and then
that's-
Bravos,
Oh.
Pentos,
Those are all in Essos.
and those are
Yeah.
all of like
So
provincial parts.
give you
of
a
that
little
or
bit of
something.
Essos. You have a couple of massive. Think of it like China and Mongolian. There's some, and the waste of Russia. Like there's huge portions of this place where there's not a lot. They have one place
Right.
called the Dothraki Sea, and then the Red Waste. So last season she was in Karth, and I honestly don't remember the strict geography of Karth, but it's kind of doing its own thing. Essos,
They're like the capitalists of
and
maybe a more
Yeah.
feudal society or something.
so Essos in its northwest corner has the free cities, which include ones like Bravos and Mur.
Okay.
And then we're frankly, like, this isn't spoiling to say she's going to be in Slaver's Bay, which includes 3 really large places where slavery is legal and is a huge part of the economy, and that matters.
Okay.
So Essos is just as big, if not bigger, than Westeros. Honestly, it's not all that different from like looking at the Americas on your left and then Asia on your right.
Okay.
But Westeros has been fairly unified, whereas Essos is much more everyone's doing their own thing.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
Cool. That's all I need to know, because they throw so many of these things around, but never in relation to each other in a way that I can understand exactly in the show.
Yeah, the
So that's
geography's
all I
not well
wanted.
set unless you pay really close attention during the opening credits.
And that's fine. Honestly, it's
Yeah, it's
not something
not
that
essential.
affects the way I've understood it. It's
Yeah.
just I'm curious about it. Honestly, if I hadn't asked the question now in 10 minutes, I would have forgotten, and I would have thought this again later and probably forgotten again. It doesn't matter. Anyways, cool. Thank you.
So, Danny, her dragons have grown quite a bit.
They're teenagers.
They can
Yeah,
fly.
they literally
Really
like described it as like,
angsty.
yeah, now they're unruly adolescents, preteens. She's looking at buying some slaves. We don't really know how yet, but they're called the Unsullied, and they are kind of raised. I think the closest pop culture relation would be in 300, or if you watched the show on Stars with all
Three
the
Ninjas.
Spartans.
Oh.
But
Three ninjas. It's just like three ninjas.
It's just like the 3 ninjas. They're trained as children in the art of war.
they're trained
Yes.
as young children.
They
They
eventually
are
destroy their masters.
insanely loyal to the point of like, one is just standing there and he's so tough that the guy goes up and cuts off his poor nipple, and he just stands there and he just takes it. They can tell them to do anything and they will do it. They have to take a newborn babe from a mother and kill the baby. So and I think that happens with Spartans, but it's a puppy. It's like a baby puppy. So this takes it to a new level. Like, they are brainwashed. They are eunuchs. They are pure soldier. But most interesting, I think it's interesting that they do have a sword and their main weapon's a spear. But they are a really big force. And right now, Dany has like a fraction of Dothrakis. So, okay, she's making her move. And then, I don't want to give too much background, but I think the Unsullied are super interesting. And that's her primary goal right now, is how do I gain power?
Yeah. And she's definitely conflicted by it, because she definitely doesn't want any sort of... She doesn't like slavery. She makes that very clear. And she feels conflicted with using slaves. And there's a conversation with Jorah that eventually kind of changes her mind, I believe. Which is interesting, because he was banished for selling slaves, which it doesn't delve into as much as I thought it would. Like, just his baggage with that.
Yeah.
But it is kind of brought up a little bit, which I always find interesting because I love his character. But yeah, so he kind of just tells her, look, when war happens, towns are burned, soldiers kind of go on and do their own thing, they become these monsters. I believe there's a quote where he says, there's a beast in every man, it stirs when you put a sword in his hands. And then there's like a lot of people who get raped and stuff, so he's like, guess who's not going to do any of those things? These completely obedient soldiers with zero junk. So
if you think about the soldiers in Westeros, like, how are they all that different from a slave? If they don't do what they're told to do, they're gonna get killed. They have to follow whoever their sigil house is, even if they live in a small town and don't really have anything to do with those people. So I'm not trying to justify slavery, but I think in war, soldiers can serve, especially in Westeros, as a pseudo-slave. But she's trying to talk to the slave master who owns the Unsullied about a deal, and he is just saying, like, he's pretty much on this Joffrey level of assholery, but he's speaking in Valyrian and thinks that she can't understand him. And I think she does a great job of being subtle just enough so that we know she understands, but we know he doesn't, and he doesn't know. And then his translator Missandei has to vanilla out everything that he says, and she does a great job. And you see how uncomfortable she is, but she's a slave, and that's all she's known. Oh man, I really enjoy that dynamic.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the most interesting things that happens is also Barristan Selmy showing up when he does to save her from obviously it's someone from the, what is it called, House of the Undying or whatever.
Yeah.
Because and I
The
read that
Warlocks of
right
Karth,
because that girl had like something in her mouth.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yeah, it was like green.
because that's how I
whatever.
read it, and then I was like, I'm not sure if that's entirely true, whatever. But yeah, him showing up is finally providing a lot of that collision that I'm craving from a lot of those storylines.
Yeah.
Is like East meeting West, finally. And I'm interested to see where that goes, because there's a lot of weird tension between Jorah and Barristan, and they both are those soldiers.
Oh yeah.
So it's like very passive aggressive sometimes in really adorable ways. Just love those guys. But yeah, I think Dany, like, I feel like in this string of episodes is like, definitely she is playing as though she's in the power position in every encounter that she has, even though I don't think she is a lot of the time.
She
But
shoots her shot,
always plays
but
it,
she
yeah.
doesn't have the chips. She's like pretty much putting in for a job that she doesn't have the resume for. But man, she's come up big in some big moments.
Right.
Does she have her big FU moment in this?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, let's
The
freaking talk
very
about
end,
it.
and I was
Do you
so
want to take
excited.
that?
Riley, talk about your take on
Well-
Essos and then close down what happens at the end here.
Okay. So, the whole time, like, what's that guy's name? The mean guy?
I don't actually know his
The
name.
mean
Okay,
guy.
whatever.
Nah,
Let's just call him
Nat
slave owner
Claw.
douchey.
That's what I
Master
looked up.
Krasnus, I believe.
Oh,
Master
yeah, you're
Krasnus.
right.
He's mean. I was waiting for her to, like, get her revenge on him for just, like, saying all that shit about her, like, constantly every time. Like, it was just unnecessary. He'd just be like, oh, well, blah, blah. I don't know. Anyway, so, when she finally, like, says, oh, I want to buy 8,000 of those, the Unsullied. And he's like, oh, well, she can't afford that, blah, blah. And she's like, oh, well, I'll give you a dragon. And I was like, there's no way she's actually going to give him one of her dragons, especially the biggest one, because that's her favorite one. Like, there's no way. And so when she finally, like, takes it up there and gives it to him, and then, like, he gives her the whip or whatever, and you're just waiting, because there was just no way. And then she, like, orders the Unsullied to just, like, demolish everyone that's ever, like, all of their, like, slave owners and everyone that's ever whipped them and stuff. That was bomb. And then her dragon just sets him on fire. And it's just the greatest. And then she, like, frees them all. And she's like, if you want to stay, you can, but I'm telling you that you're free because I don't want to have slaves. And then they all stay. And it's just, like, epic when she's just, like, marching and all of her army is behind her and the dragons are up there. It was just great.
It's one of the few moments where we get some traditional fictional payoff. Like, where you get kind of what you expected because you knew she could understand. It's like, when is she going to throw this in his face? But she also, she wins. We rarely in the show does someone win. I mean, I guess someone wins every interaction, but not in this way. Not in this direct,
Not
epic
in
feeling
definitive, the other
Yeah,
person
not as
lit on
clean.
fire.
Yeah.
Like,
watching him
all of her
panic is
vic-
so
City
good.
was
all of Daenerys'
destroyed.
victories so far in the show have come at a cost.
Yeah.
And even in season 2, like, losing a lot of her Dothraki and being betrayed by one of her handmaidens and Zoros Daxos and everything, and not getting a ton out of that like she thought she would, considering like his vault was empty and everything. So it's never been as clean as it is in this sequence where she plays her game and she kind of shows. I think this is like the first time we really show like how capable she actually can be.
And she lies. She offers up that
Yeah.
dragon, and then she's like, yeah, I was just playing. That ain't gonna happen, son.
And she's alone. Like,
Right.
these aren't things that she's working with Jorah on, which kind of the scene where she's like, "I'll give you one of my dragons." George is like, "What? Like that." I was
It's like, dude, come
I know
on.
they're not gonna do it, but yeah, he's like so shocked. But yeah, so it is interesting to see. Like, she really, I think that this season, more than we've seen her before, she isn't leaning on anyone.
Yeah.
Like, she feels like she's coming to her own and knows that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting and fun.
It's a lot of fun to watch, and it is frustrating that she is so separate right now. But I think that we're seeing her grow as a character, and I kind of like the mystery. Like, she's always still with John. Like, we know what she ultimately wants. But we don't know, like, okay, what's her exact plan? Because they present it. They're like, you still need ships. You still need to figure this out. But she does know that the Seven Kingdoms are in distress right now, so it's probably a good time to strike. And so it's just this anxiousness, like, okay, she's got this army, let's go. All right. Any final thoughts? Any shout outs we need to give? We didn't talk about Joffrey a lot. He is a complete douche tool.
Yeah.
But is there anyone who I think Marjorie is probably our winner as far as who made the most strides towards the throne. Is there anyone else you guys want to throw out there?
I do want. I'm trying to remember. Oh no, because you talked about in your rundown. I remember we got to the point with the Brotherhood capturing the Hound, and
Yeah, that's all we've seen.
Like-
so we've met Beric Dondarrion.
yeah, we've met him, and they're about to.
Fight.
Yeah,
That's-
Yeah,
Oh
because
yeah,
he's
yeah.
been,
It's like
like,
into the
trial by
cliffhanger
combat.
there.
I don't think there's anyone that's a contender for the throne in that sequence or anything. But I love both Beric Dondarrion and Thoros of Myr. And I can't remember the archer's name.
Angie.
But-
It's
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember reading it and being like,
I love when he shoots the arrow straight up, and then he's like, "You better move," and it comes down right where he was. That's pretty dope.
Yeah, no, I really love Thoros of Myr. He's, I mean, more. They go into more in the next episode. We'll talk about him, but man, he is. I don't know why that actor and how they directed him and everything. Just he works on screen for me every moment, and I mean, yeah, anything with the Brotherhood Without Banners and Arya and now Gendry's becoming has more screen time.
right, yeah.
I like where they're going. I do want to know, since you haven't been on the show, Riley, on
Yes.
kind of who your favorite character is and why.
I think it's Arya Stark, just because I think that in the beginning you kind of saw her be like, oh, I don't just want to be like a lady and all that stuff. Like, she wanted to fight and she wanted that. And I feel like in some things you kind of see that, like, people really want to be fighters, but then they can't really, like, follow it up. But I think that she's done a really good job of, like, she says that she wants it and she does it. And she's had, like, a really hard road, but she's, like, crushed it the whole time. And so I'm excited to kind of see where she's going to end up with everything.
Did you have a distinct favorite between seasons 1 and 2?
Like
I'm
a
just
favorite
generally
character?
curious. Favorite character or just favorite? Do you feel like, did you like the beginning or did you like how it started to like spread in season 2? Did you have a preference between the two?
I kind of liked when it started to spread out more, because I thought that let us see more character development than we did in season 1, because everything was so close.
Yeah.
But now that things are more spread out and people are more like on their own, like Sansa and Arya, like they just kind of have to figure out and like play the game. And I think that's really interesting to see them both grow in different ways.
I think it's interesting how many people, I kind of forgot, there's some run-ins that you forget about that happened through season 2 and 3 and all of the movement. And then one more, did you know Ned Stark was going to die?
No.
Were you
I
really
was
surprised?
shocked because I was waiting. I was like, they didn't really kill him. That's not real. And then he just was, and I was really sad. Like, it was really tragic.
Had you been like, oh, I'll probably watch Game of Thrones someday, were you pretty intrigued by it?
Not really. I had friends tell me to watch it, and I was like, I don't know. I'm not really into like that like fantasy world stuff. But then you guys all started watching it, so I was like, okay, I'll try it. And then I binged like the whole first season in like a couple days.
So it's lived up. It's been pretty intriguing.
Yeah, I've liked it a lot.
Have you had a lot spoiled for you at all, or have you been
By like
able to
memes or
stay-
Reddit or anything.
Not that
Go
I
die.
remember. I just remember like names of people, and actually I was watching SNL last week when Jason Momoa was on it, and they did
Oh,
a
yeah.
Game of Thrones skit, and I thought I skipped it because one thing got like spoiled, and then I thought I had skipped it all, and then another thing got spoiled, and I was like, okay, well,
It's hard. I
So-
mean, it's just knowing, like, you know, there are going to be things, because it's one of the few things that still a lot of people watch it live and talk about it the next day. And that, like, that used to happen a lot when network TV dominated, when Lost dominated, and then I kind of like how it's one little piece of monoculture. It's like the Super Bowl and Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
And Trump.
Something that's been on for almost a decade now, so it's kind of hard to
Yeah.
avoid.
And it did build. I'd even compared to Breaking Bad, which built a lot towards that last season. It was not a super hit until like third and fourth. All of a sudden, it was like, "Okay, this is as good as The Wire," and like this is a huge show and everything. Super interesting. All right, any final thoughts on 1 through 4?
I don't think so.
nope.
Sweet. Hey, thanks for talking. Thanks for talking, guys.
Thanks for throning.
Thanks for throning. We thrown.
Thanks
Talking
Thanks for sitting on our
Thrones.
throne.
Okay, and on that note, that was Tyler McKinley. I'm here with Tyler Harris and Riley Harris. My name's Mitchell Marshall, and we'll be back next time with episodes 5 through 8. I always get confused with the middle episodes of season 3. We're making way. It's been fun.
We're making waves.
5 to
What the hell is up with this episode?
Can we just end this? All right.